y'all, we are doing May's monthly reading wrap up, and I have kind of a mixed bag of books here. First book I read in May was The Chemist by Stephanie Meyer. I didn't even know this book existed. I have this friend who owns a bookstore and she brought it over and was like, I thought you might enjoy this book, so totally surprised. This book is about this female agent. She works for the US government in this like undercover secret agency. She's an expert in her field. She is a chemist, hence the title. And one of the things she does is gains information from people. Turns out her agency wants to like shut down her department though, and the guy she works with is killed and they're coming after her next. So she goes on the run. She is offered a job from the agency so that way she can come out of hiding, but it's potentially a trap. But she's told that there's this guy out there who's a terrorist, name's Kevin, and if she kidnaps Kevin and interrogates him and gets the information to stop this attack from happening, that they will accept her back into the agency and she no longer has to be on the run. Turns out Kevin has a twin brother, and potentially this mission the agency has sent her on was a fake just so they could take her down. And so she gets wrapped up into this whole situation with these twin brothers. I liked this book well enough. I'm thinking maybe I just don't love Stephanie Meyer's form of writing, but the storyline was something different than what I've read before, so that was interesting. I didn't love the main character, so that could potentially be why I wasn't that crazy about it. Kevin was probably my favorite, and he's more of like a side character, so he wasn't even really in it that much. So I probably would never read this again. Would I recommend it? I wouldn't not recommend it. To be fair, it is rare that I would be like, do not read this book, but The next book I read was Stone Cold Fox by Rachel Collar Croft. This book, you guys, this is kind of like a thriller suspense. It's about this character, B. She's a con artist. Who knows what her real name is, but she goes by B at this time. She was raised by her mother, who is also a con artist. Her mom's deal was just hop from guy to guy, use them for as long as she needs them, then move on to the next one. Well, B's goal is to just find one rich guy, convince him to marry her, and then settle down and not have to hop around for the rest of her life, which leads her to Colin Case. And of course, he comes from old money, so none of his family or friends really accept anyone outside of their social circle. So not only does she have to win over Colin, she kind of has to win over everyone he associates with. I was actually super intrigued by this book. It does hop back and forth between past and present, so her currently trying to get with Colin, and then in the past when she was with her mom and her mom was using her in her cons. I did not love B's character, but the more I heard about her mother, the more slack I gave her. Her mom was truly awful, you guys. I really enjoyed reading this book. One of the tricky things was everything is from B's perspective, and she, you know, was raised by a con artist, so it's kind of hard. You're not really sure what's real and isn't real because it's all from her perspective, and you know it's a little skewed because she's a little crazy, but super entertaining read. I would definitely recommend this one. No, I said a complete sentence now per the Olsen twins. Have you heard? I actually have heard that. That's another fun thing about this book is there's a lot of like pop culture references. So that was a lot of fun to be like, I don't understand that one, or I know what that's from. The next thing I read was Eclipse by Stephanie Meyer. I, of course, did a reading vlog on this, so go watch that video. The next thing I read was The Stranger Inside by Lisa Unger. Oh my gosh, you guys. I was shocked by how much I loved this book. It is like a psychological thriller book. It's about a journalist named Rain. She's kind of taking a break from her job to be a stay-at-home mom, but there is this man who was acquitted of murder is killed. It was someone she had investigated when she was still working, so she's obviously very interested in the case and what's going on, but she's starting to see some patterns between this and some things that have happened in her past. Turns out she has had her own experience with a murderer, and it's seeming like all these things tied together. I loved Rain and her best friend Gillian. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Firefly Lane, but if it was like dark and true crime-y instead of like, have you seen Firefly Lane? Such a good show. There were some really good twists in this book though, like things I did not see coming, and just about all of the characters were really likable. Obviously not any of the killers or anything like that, but I do just love a book more when you actually like the people you're reading about. Makes sense, right? It was the way it always was with old friends. Years had passed, but the energy between them was the same. They knew each other, were familiar in the way of family. They'd seen all the layers of each other, even those they'd managed to hide from others. Time and circumstance had never turned them into strangers. Enemies at one point, antagonists, but not strangers. You guys, if you like true crime and mystery, this is the book for you. The last thing I read this month was Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Sue Lin Tan. I was at the grocery store with my husband and I saw this book while we were standing in the checkout line and I just grabbed it. I felt like a lot of the things I've been reading lately, aside from the fantasy stuff, has all been very like true crime, serial killer-esque books, or like people disappearing. And I wanted something a little different, and this seemed very different. And oh my gosh, it did not disappoint. If you read any book from this month's reading wrap up, this is the one I suggest you pick up. I had heard nothing about this prior to reading it. This is about a girl named Singing. I'm probably gonna destroy these names, so forgive me. But she grows up on the moon with her mother, who's the moon goddess. She doesn't realize that they are there though, because they were exiled to the moon. They were exiled by the celestial emperor because of something her mother had done. She's not supposed to be there though. They think her mother is alone. They find out there could be someone on the moon with her, and so her mom sends Singing out into the real world. She's on her way to live in the mortal realm, but something happens and she ends up in the immortal realm where the celestial emperor lives. She ends up as the companion to Prince Leeway, who's the emperor's son, and she learns to master her archery and magic, and also gains this really close relationship with the prince. Her goal, though, is to one day get back to her mother, the moon goddess, and she has to do this without telling anyone who her true identity is. I was obsessed with this whole book. It is a duology, so I need to get the second one like ASAP. And this is action-packed. So much happens in this book. Something new would come up and I kept thinking the book is gonna end before this is resolved, and this will be like in the second book, but no, things just kept happening. It is exciting the whole way through. Plus her writing is just really beautiful. Today I finally dared to gaze at the sun, allowing its radiance to blaze through me unhindered, spilling through my veins until I was aglow. Never did I imagine such luminous joy existed, and never again could I be content to remain in the shadows. Hey guys, that is everything I read in the month of May. This was actually a pretty good reading month. Like, I enjoyed everything I read quite a bit. If you have read any of these books though, I would love to know what you thought of them, or if you have any book suggestions for me, I can add it onto my never-ending TBR cart. You can follow me on Instagram to see what I am currently reading. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you next Wednesday.